Hey everyone, how's it going? I have a question for you. Have you ever noticed how certain games just improve your mood right from the initial startup screen or menu before you've even started playing them? I don't see how you couldn't have. Games are pretty synonymous with recreation and enjoyment, which leads me to believe that most people have a couple of those games in their life. It might be a game you've been looking forward to for a long time and now you can barely believe it's out and actually in your hands. Could be a series that you've been a fan of for a long time, so it comes with the expectation of greatness or familiarity that you're used to. Both of these are really good reasons for why a game might improve your mood, but what I'm here to talk about are the really few rare comfy games, the special ones. Everyone has at least a few of these, and they're what I call video game comfort food. First off, let me play a couple of sound clips from various games. You might have recognized some, or maybe even all of them, but I know they can kind of be hard to make out in a vacuum. Let me play a couple more well-known clips. Now, you definitely recognized at least one of those if you spent any amount of time playing games, but the real question here is, did it make you smile when you recognized one of them? Maybe nod in confirmation? Did you think about the last time you heard it, or maybe the last time you played that particular game all snug and comfy in your couch or bed? For me, these kinds of things are just one ingredient of what goes into making video game comfort food. I have such a powerful reaction to certain sound effects and of course music that originated in some of my favorite games, and I at least partially understand that's because I grew up with these favorite games, and that's obviously why they're my favorite games. But why is that? The short answer is the first ingredient needed for a game to hit the level of comfort food. Everyone knows nostalgia and has probably felt it several times as they age and experience new or old things, so let's talk about that for a little bit. Coming straight from the wiki, the word nostalgia is derived from two Greek roots. Nostos, meaning to return to one's native land, or more simply, homecoming, and algos, referring to pain, suffering, or grief. It was coined in the 17th century by medical students to describe the anxieties displayed by Swiss mercenaries fighting away from home. Now, we're not here to talk about sad nostalgia though. It exists for sure, but that's not for us. We want happy, warm, fuzzy nostalgia. Coming home from school and diving into the next big adventure, staying up late to finish off side quests, challenging yourself in harder difficulties. Everyone's got some nostalgia for better times before they grew up and maybe fell out of love with a couple hobbies or just didn't have the time they once did. And if you're still not grown up, well, first of all, lucky you. Secondly, don't worry bud, you'll get there. Nostalgia is probably everyone's biggest factor in dusting off the old consoles or breaking out the third-party software on their PCs in order to relive something they grew up with. People do it all the time with movies, TV shows, photo albums, and especially video games. The actual critical score of the video game does not matter in the least bit, just that you love and appreciate it. Which leads us straight into the next of my key ingredients for some tasty, tasty comfort food. Emotions are going to be a little more abstract. Everyone experiences them a little differently. Some people feel them more powerfully than others, some people hide them better, but we all have them. Lizard people and homunculi notwithstanding. But if nostalgia is the warm, fuzzy ingredient of our comfort food, then emotion is the bite, the zest, the bitterness of it. Games are, in a broad sense, very emotional outlets for a good majority of players. Has a character's death ever made you cry? Or maybe their romance did. Maybe a particularly intense moment made the hair on your arm stand up straight while you mutter expletives condemning a villain, or spurring on the hero. Story-driven games and RPGs will often elicit an emotional response from its player, but that honor isn't only limited to narrative games. Teeth-gritting, knuckle-whitening butt clenchers in platformers or competitive games count too. And while some of us may have more visceral and rage-filled responses to competitive games, that's still emotion, and hey, if that's how you consume your gaming comfort food, then who am I to stop you? Just cool it with the racism, Kyle. A comfort food has to have an emotional connection to you. Whether it was made during your childhood or even adulthood isn't for me to judge. There's no gatekeeping with your emotions, but for me, more often than not, it's going to be a game from my kid to teenage years, so nostalgia really does create an emotional response. And with that out of the way, that leads us straight into the third and final ingredient for our comfort food video game. This one's pretty obvious, but also the most subjective ingredient in a comfort pie. A game for me isn't a comfort food game if it's not fun, you know? What constitutes as fun is going to vary greatly from person to person, but it's really what you make of it. Enjoy going for achievements or trophies? Hell yeah, brother. Rhythm games? Cool. Existential torment? Yeah, man. Epic sweeping stories full of love, loss, lore, and Luigi? I'm right there with you. If the game makes your heart feel full and makes you happy, that's fun. And that's the final ingredient we need for some gaming comfort food. So now we have nostalgia, emotion, and fun. I'll give you a little bit of time to think about what games you can consider comfort food while I talk about one that I love and why. It's basically the game you've been watching in the background this entire time. Golden Sun, a GBA RPG developed by Camelot and published by Nintendo in the early 2000s. Now, I was born in '89, which puts me at the ripe old age of 31, meaning that when Golden Sun came out in 2001, I was about 12 to 13-ish. Just long enough ago that my nostalgia has aged like a fine wine. I grew up in Europe, but my family was American, so for the holidays we'd fly back to the land of the free to spend time with family, and one year while back my cousin let me borrow a game that he said was pretty cool for the GBA I had just gotten from my grandma. That game was not Golden Sun, it was Spyro the Dragon, and I hated it, and I hated him for trying to trade my Advanced Wars for it. I still hold that against him. Luckily, my other cousin heard me tell him that there would be dire consequences for this disrespect and placated me with an offer of trying out a new RPG called Golden Sun. He must have heard me ranting to all the uninterested adults about my favorite anxiety-ridden black mage who was contemplating death and figured I liked RPGs. I was hooked immediately by the game's world, music, and characters. I'll probably have a video dedicated purely to Golden Sun because I love it so much, but that's for a later time. Golden Sun to me is sitting in my grandpa's oversized cigarette-smelling comfy chair with a little purple GBA in my hands during that Christmas season. It's hiding under the covers with a flashlight because handhelds didn't have backlights back then. And it's to this day still my favorite RPG. I can't hear the opening theme without smiling, I can't start a new file and not have fun listening to the goofy GBA quality voice effects. It's comfort food through and through. Can you think of any games or series out there that combine the three ingredients in order to make the perfect comfort food that you can sit down with any time of the day, month, or year? One that you can start up a new file and after sitting and listening to the menu theme for at least 5 minutes, just dive straight in and still enjoy it as if it was your first playthrough? Let me know in the comments section below. Feel free to tell me all the stories about how that game or series came to be your comfort food. And if you liked the video, maybe consider liking and subscribing to the channel. This is a new channel and I very much don't know exactly what I want to do with it yet, but it's a learning experience and so far it's been pretty fun. If the background footage has piqued your interest in Golden Sun and you want to know what happens next, I highly suggest you go onto eBay and try and find a used copy for it. It's for the GBA and it's usually only like 30 or 40 bucks. Thank you very much for your time and I'll catch you later.